You wake up this morning and your net worth just crossed $1 trillion. Not a billion, not 10 billion, 1 trillion. And the first thing you feel is not happiness. It's not excitement. It's something closer to silence. A deep, heavy silence that most people will never understand. Because at this level, money stops being money. It becomes something else entirely. Something that controls the weather of entire economies, shifts the direction of governments, and makes world leaders return your calls before they return calls from their own cabinets. Welcome to the life you never fully imagined. Let's walk through it together. Before we get into this, I want to ask you something. Drop in the comments right now and tell me where in the world you're watching this from. Whether you're in New York, London, Lagos, Dubai, or anywhere else on the planet, let me know. I read every single comment, and honestly, knowing where this community is from makes this whole thing feel more real. So let's start with the basics. What does $1 trillion actually look like in your daily life? Because here's what most people get wrong. They think a trillionaire lives like a billionaire, just with more zeros. That's not how it works. A billionaire still thinks about money. A trillionaire has moved so far past thinking about money that the concept itself has become almost irrelevant to their daily existence. You don't check your bank account. You don't think about prices. You don't have a wallet. You have a team of 40 people whose entire job is to make sure that money never crosses your mind for a single second of your day. Your morning starts not with an alarm, but with a soft knock on the door of whichever residence you're in that week. Because you don't have one home, you have 11. A private island in the Maldives, a penthouse in Manhattan that takes up 3 full floors, a medieval castle in Scotland you bought just to restore it, a working vineyard in Tuscany, and 4 or 5 others you rotate through depending on the season, your mood, and your schedule. Your morning team, yes, a team, has already prepared the room to your exact preferences. The temperature, the lighting, the scent in the air, the specific mineral water on your nightstand. Every detail has been pre-configured to your personal profile that your staff maintains and updates constantly. Breakfast is whatever you want, prepared by a private chef who trained at the best restaurants in the world and now works exclusively for you. But here's what's interesting about being a trillionaire. After a while, even this stops feeling special. The chef, the island, the private jet on standby, it all becomes background noise. The human brain adapts remarkably fast to luxury. What shocked you at $100 million is completely ordinary at $1 trillion. This is something no finance book ever talks about. The hedonic treadmill doesn't stop for anyone, not even for you. Now, let's talk about how you actually got here, because no one becomes a trillionaire by accident. At this level of wealth, you didn't just build a company, you built infrastructure. You own systems that other businesses depend on to operate. Think about it this way. A billionaire might own a very successful company. A trillionaire owns the roads those companies drive on, the satellites those companies communicate through, and the energy those companies run on. Your wealth is so embedded in the basic functioning of modern civilization that if you disappeared tomorrow, supply chains would break, communication networks would stutter, and governments would hold emergency meetings to figure out how to handle the gap you left behind.
This is where the power gets uncomfortable. Because at $1 trillion, you are no longer just a private citizen. You are effectively a sovereign entity. Nations come to you. Not to ask for money directly, that would be too obvious. They come to you with opportunities, tax arrangements that no normal person would ever see, land deals, infrastructure contracts, energy agreements that reshape national economies. And in return, your lawyers and advisors make sure that your wealth grows in ways that are perfectly legal, perfectly structured, and completely invisible to the public eye. The average person thinks the wealthy pay lower taxes than them. At your level, the concept of traditional taxation has been engineered almost entirely out of your financial life. Your day is not spent spending money. That's the biggest misconception people have about extreme wealth. Your day is spent in conversations that shape things. A call with a prime minister about a port deal in Southeast Asia. A meeting with a team of scientists you're personally funding to solve a problem that hasn't been solved in 100 years because you decided it bothered you and you have the resources to fix it. A video call with your foundation's director about a water project in sub-Saharan Africa that will serve 12 million people and that you funded entirely on a Tuesday afternoon because someone mentioned it at dinner the night before.
At $1 trillion, your philanthropy alone makes you one of the most powerful forces in global development. But here's the part nobody talks about. That power is complicated. Because when one person controls enough capital to reshape entire regions of the world, the question of accountability becomes very uncomfortable. Who elected you? Nobody. Who can tell you your priorities are wrong? Almost no one with the leverage to matter. This is the strange burden of being a trillionaire. The freedom is absolute. And absolute freedom, it turns out, is one of the loneliest things a human being can experience. Your relationships change at this level in ways that are genuinely difficult to process. Everyone in your life, even the people who loved you before the money, relates to you differently now. Not necessarily with bad intentions, but differently. There is always an awareness of what you could do for someone, always a layer of calculation somewhere under the surface, even when people are trying their hardest to be genuine. The friends who feel completely real are the ones from before. The ones who knew you when you were just another person with a dream and a coffee that cost $3.50. You hold on to those relationships with both hands because they are the only mirror left that shows you who you actually are. And then there is the question that follows you everywhere at this level. The question that no amount of money answers, and it gets louder the wealthier you become. What is this all for? Not in a dramatic existential crisis kind of way. More like a quiet hum underneath everything. Because when you have solved the material problem of your existence so completely that it can never come back, when survival is not just guaranteed, but almost cosmically impossible to threaten, what drives you forward? What gets you out of bed? The answer, if you were honest with yourself, is usually not money. It never was. It was always the problem, the puzzle, the thing that needed to be built or fixed or understood. Money was just the scoreboard. And at $1 trillion, the scoreboard has become almost meaningless, which forces you to finally confront what the game was actually about.
This is the version of wealth that nobody posts about. Nobody makes a highlight reel of the quiet Tuesday afternoon where you sit alone in a room that costs more per square foot than most people earn in a year. And you wonder if the choices that brought you here were the right ones. That moment is real, and it is more common among the ultra-wealthy than anyone will ever publicly admit.